now every time some knucklehead on a student visa says death to America, congratulations, you just volunteered. Bye-bye. And by the way, why is this complicated? You let someone in on a visa. It's a guest you're welcoming. If you invite someone to your home for dinner and they sit down at the table and say, death to your family, you'd say, well, this has been real nice, but bye-bye. Like, this is over. We have no obligation to welcome in as guests people who want to kill us. I want to talk to you about three things tonight. I want to talk to you about grief. I want to talk to you about victory. And I want to talk to you about danger. Let's start with grief. A little over 2 years ago, on October 7th, we saw in a few hours one of the most horrific atrocities the world has ever seen. Hamas death squads crossed into southern Israel, and they went from door to door, murdering everyone they found. They murdered civilians, they murdered the elderly, they murdered children. They raped women, and they raped little girls. They murdered them not because they were enemy soldiers. They murdered them for one reason, because they were Jewish. More than 1,200 people were murdered that night. It is the single largest mass murder of Jews in one day since the Holocaust. And what we saw on October 7th, those were Nazi tactics carried out for Nazi ends. And the only lament the Hamas terrorists had is they couldn't murder even more Jews. Over 200 Israelis were taken hostage that night. That night was also one of the worst terrorist attacks against the United States of America in our history. Dozens of Americans were murdered. Even more Americans taken hostage. And in the 2 years that have followed, the people of Israel, the people of America, and all people of good conscience across the globe have grieved for the evil that transpired that night. I'll tell you, on October 8th, October 9th, I reached out to dozens of my friends, made phone calls, sent them a text, just said, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? Did you have family? Did you have friends who were in harm's way? I got to tell you, of the 30-some-odd friends of mine that I sent texts to who were Jewish and living in America, more than half of them responded, yes, I had. My cousin was there. Yes, my brother-in-law was there. Yes, my high school roommate was there. The pain and the grief that October 7th visited upon us knows no limits. But the second thing I want to talk to you about is victory. The Word tells us that what man means for evil, God can use for good. And there was evil that night, raw, unmitigated evil and hate. And yet I'm going to suggest to you that God used it for good in multiple ways. One, as a result of October 7th, the nation of Israel resolved to utterly and completely eliminate Hamas. Doing so is unambiguously good. It is unambiguously good for Israel, and it is unambiguously good for America. But second, October 7th provided a moment of clarity. Absolute, acute clarity. In my view, there is no gray, there is no subjectivity as to what transpired on October 7th. It is a choice between good and evil. It is a choice between civilization and barbarism. And every one of us, every elected official, every pastor, every American, everyone across the globe has a choice to make. With whom do you stand? And as for me and my house, we shall stand with Israel. That clarity is important. That clarity revealed the bilious antisemitism within our colleges, within our universities, within the radical left of the Democrat Party. Now note I said the word revealed. I didn't say created. No one with any sense thinks that that hatred was absent on October 6th. All October 7th did was pull down the curtains and make it evident for a lot of people to see. And listen, we saw on campuses throughout the country rabidly anti-Semitic protests, radicals showing up who hate Israel and who hate America, standing and engaging in threats of violence against their fellow Jewish students. You know, sometimes people say, well, it was terrible. Those protests, they went on all over the country. Well, no, actually they didn't. They occurred in blue states with blue governors. We saw them in New York. We saw them in Pennsylvania. We saw them in Connecticut. We saw them in New Jersey. We saw them in Massachusetts. We saw them in Illinois. We saw them in California. We saw them in Washington State. We didn't see them in Florida. We didn't see them here in Texas. Actually, we did briefly. For one day, the protesters came to the University of Texas, and the police showed up, arrested them, put them in jail, and it was over. And I'll tell you what we found when they arrested those protesters at University of Texas. Roughly half of them had no connection to UT. There were outside agitators that came to foment dissent and to threaten violence. Columbia University, the Orthodox rabbi on campus sent out an email to roughly 270 Jewish students at Columbia, advising those students, do not come to campus because the university is unwilling and unable to keep you safe. At MIT, Jewish students there said they were afraid to come to class because of fears of violence that would be directed against them. President of MIT said, well, we can't discipline the people making the violent threats because the people making the threats are foreigners, and if we discipline them, they'll lose their student visa and they'll be deported. You're way ahead of me. Well, I will say this. What a difference an election makes. This is not complicated. If you show up on a campus and you are threatening your fellow students, you are threatening violence. You should be arrested. You should be prosecuted. You should go to jail. And if you are a foreigner, you should be deported. And I got to say, I said many times in the last election, if and when Donald Trump is reelected president, you better believe every one of those radicals, they are going to face consequences. And now every time some knucklehead on a student visa says death to America, congratulations, you just volunteered. Bye-bye. And by the way, why is this complicated? You let someone in on a visa. It's a guest you're welcoming. If you invite someone to your home for dinner and they sit down at the table and say, death to your family, you'd say, well, this has been real nice, but bye-bye. Like, this is over. We have no obligation to welcome in as guests people who want to kill us. And it's not just the radicals. What I have been urging the Department of Justice and the FBI to do is follow the money. Am I the only one who noticed how many of the tents on campuses matched? It is clear there is real money. There are checks that are being written, and everyone who writes a check to fund violence and terrorism, they should be arrested and they should be put in jail. But not only are there victories from clarity, there are also victories in terms of just winning. If you look at what Israel has done the last 2 years, it has utterly and completely decimated Hamas. And there was an interesting moment right after October 7th where it wasn't clear. Initially, Israel just responded to Hamas and Hezbollah in the north. It's an interesting moment. All right, is Hezbollah going to get in the middle of this or not? And then the knuckleheads at Hezbollah raised their hands and said, sure, we'd like to be a part of it. And they began firing rockets into Israel. They decided Hamas alone wasn't enough. And Hezbollah, again, has been utterly and completely destroyed. You look at the pager operation. Holy cow! Like, literally, if I wrote this as a script of a movie, it'd never get made. It'd get rejected as that is too fantastical. You're going to tell me Israel is going to go to Hong Kong years before, create a dummy corporation, make heavy-duty pagers, sell them to Hezbollah, they're going to buy them just to have them there in case and when they need them. And beyond that, you want to talk about the most targeted military and intelligence operation in human history. Hezbollah leadership literally handed the pagers to each and every terrorist crazy enough that they said, hey, I want to be able to page you when I need a terrorist. And so when they detonated, it was only the terrorist Hezbollah deemed the worst of the worst. Only time in my life I've ever wanted to page a terrorist. And then 2 days later, the walkie-talkies Hezbollah was using, they blew up. And I gotta say, 2 days later, I guarantee you, every terrorist at Hezbollah and Hamas and everywhere else, every time a phone rang, they jumped. And by the way, that's how I like my terrorists, is scared out of their mind. And you look at the victory that Israel won against Iran. Understand, Hamas is evil, Hezbollah is evil, but Iran is the head of the snake. More than 90% of the funding for Hamas comes from Iran. More than 90% of the funding for Hezbollah comes from Iran. Of all of the egregious decisions made in the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris administration, none were more indefensible than their decision to flow more than $100 billion into Iran. A regime led by a theocratic, homicidal maniac who chants death to Israel and death to America. Now listen, if history teaches anything, it is that if somebody tells you they want to kill you, believe them. And Israel's operation systematically taking out the 12-day war, taking out Iran's air defense system, taking out their senior military leaders, taking out the heads of the IRGC. It was literally day after day, head of the IRGC, boom, next guy, okay, you're in charge. 24 hours later, second guy, he's gone. Third guy, he's gone. By guy number 5, when the Ayatollah said, hey, want to lead the IRGC? I'm sorry, I got a phone call. You know, give it to Bob. He'll be great. It was an utter and complete victory, and a victory that was finally made complete when President Trump made the single most important national security decision of his second term and bombed the nuclear weapons facilities in Iran. That victory was profound and powerful. And it changes things in a very real way on the ground when you win a war. And since we last gathered, Israel has won a war and defeated Hamas, defeated Hezbollah, and defeated Iran. But the third thing I want to talk to you about is danger. Because in the face of that victory, we should be celebrating. We should be celebrating an historic peace accord where now every single hostage has been returned home. But there is a danger that is very real, and we've talked about antisemitism. Listen, about a decade ago, anti-Semitism began rising on the left. And the Democratic Party did nothing. And in the decade that followed, it has consumed the Democrat Party. I do not believe this is exaggeration to say there is a real and meaningful pro-Hamas contingent of the Democrat Party in Washington. And the remainder of the Democrats are terrified of the pro-Hamas contingent. We know that. But the danger that I want to highlight to you tonight is not anti-Semitism on the left. It is anti-Semitism on the right. And I'm here to tell you, in the last 6 months, I have seen anti-Semitism rising on the right in a way I have never seen it in my entire life. Listen, CUFI is extraordinary. The work that CUFI does is desperately, desperately needed. But I'm here to tell you, the church is asleep right now. If I pick up my phone and send out a tweet, if I say good morning, within minutes I will have hundreds of blatantly anti-Semitic responses. When Prime Minister Netanyahu was here a few months ago, I sat down with him for a couple of hours. I raised this issue with him. And his first reaction was, he said, well, that's Qatar, that's Iran, they're paying for it, it's AstroTurf. And I said, Mr. Prime Minister, yes, but no. Yes, Qatar and Iran are clearly paying for it, and there are bots, and they are putting real money behind it. But I am telling you, this is real, it is organic, these are real human beings, and it is spreading. In the last year, we had 3 prominent voices on the right publicly muse, gosh, maybe Hitler wasn't that bad a guy after all. Yes, he was. He was the embodiment of evil. And I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu, I said, imagine how different American political history would have been if Rush Limbaugh had been an anti-Semite instead of a philo-Semite. We would have a fundamentally different country if Rush Limbaugh had spent years spreading poison. I want to tell especially folks that are no longer teenagers or in your 20s. This poison of anti-Semitism on the right, it is spreading with young people. It is gaining traction. Part of it is philosophical. There's an isolationism. So they will argue, what business do we have supporting Israel? Why should America support Israel? It's their problem. Let them deal with it. And let me give you an answer as someone elected to represent 31 million Texans and fight every day for your jobs, your freedom, and your safety and security. The United States supports Israel not because we are helping out a down-on-his-luck neighbor. We're not engaged in a charity act. The United States supports Israel because it is unequivocally in the national security interest of the United States to support Israel. Those who hate Israel hate America. Those who hate Jews hate Christians. There is a reason the Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little Satan and America as the great Satan. Every year, the United States provides roughly $3 billion in military assistance to Israel. The benefit we get from that, the Mossad, the intelligence resources. You look at Iran, where they knew where every anti-aircraft weapon was, every military leader, every IRGC leader. That benefit, if America tried to replicate that intelligence network, it would cost us tens of billions of dollars. And I will tell you, every lunatic terrorist in Hamas or Hezbollah or Iran that Israel took out, made America safer, and the United States of America should say to that little nation, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's why, as a matter of public policy, we should support Israel. But I want to close with this. God bless you, son. By the way, have you noticed all the pro-Hamas protesters? After the ceasefire, what did Hamas do? Hamas lined up Palestinians and began shooting them in the back of the heads, and none of those protesters seemed to mind. They don't seem to care at all if it's Palestinians being killed by Hamas. It kind of makes you think maybe it's just an excuse to say how much they hate Jews. By the way, have any of the protesters talked about the 50,000 Christians who've been killed by Boko Haram and other jihadists in Nigeria? No, they don't care about that either because it's not Jews doing it, so it's not their problem. But I want to close with this as a Christian. Look, Pastor Hagee, the work that you have done, the work that CUFI has done to mobilize Christians across this country to stand with Israel, it is incredibly important. But I will tell you, there is a movement among Christians, particularly young Christians. The public polling numbers of support for Israel among young Christians is plummeting. And they're being spread lies. They're being spread lies, isolationist lies, that we should withdraw from the world because nobody wants to hurt us. But they're also being spread theological lies. They are being taught replacement theology, which is a lie that the promises God made to Israel and the people of Israel are somehow no longer good. They are no longer valid, that when God made a promise, he didn't mean the promise he made. And instead, it is an argument that the Christian church has replaced Israel and the Jews are no longer God's chosen people, and all of the promises throughout the Bible are now a dead letter. Now, I'll tell you, I was grateful, Pastor Hagee, when you were preaching earlier tonight. You addressed much of this directly and head on, and that is important. I want to call on CUFI. I want to call on the church. This is a growing cancer. A decade ago, when the Democrats saw it rising, they did nothing and they lost their party. I will tell you this, I will not remain silent. And it's easy to feel like, okay, we don't need to worry. We just want a war. Trump's been elected. Peace in the Middle East. Okay, our job is done. Breathe a sigh of relief and let's go to the ball game. But when I said that tonight was the most important of the 45 nights to honor Israel, this was the reason more than anything. Not the grief and not the victories, but the danger. The church is being corrupted right now, and leaders in the church need to engage and say the Bible is not silent on Israel. The Bible is crystal clear on Israel, and in the church we will stand and fight. Each of you here, each of you at CUFI, the millions across America and across the globe, you were put in this place right now today for such a time as this. And I'll close the way I opened, by saying, God bless Israel, God bless Texas, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide, or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.